Welcome to Best of Reddit. Be sure to subscribe as we upload new content daily. If you ask me, this is actually petty revenge. So I worked from home for a lot of years. I never met my boss. But we spoke on the phone pretty much every workday. The boss is one of those Ivy League, old money types with delusions of being a self-made man. Yeah, sure, he was self-made, if that means mommy and daddy paying for his college and then using his trust fund to start his own company. Also, this guy has deep psychological, mental problems, which may become apparent as this story progresses. Guy was kind of insane. Anyway, I should start at the beginning. One fall morning, I found myself unemployed. I'd taken a job for basically a .com. 2 or 3 key investors pulled their funding at the last minute and that was the end of the line for the .com. It's a pretty common tale. Obviously, I needed some kind of job and I found this work from home gig. Sounded good. Decent pay, obviously no commute, work in my PJs all day, not a bad deal. My plan was to work there for a while until I figured out my next move. It started off pretty easily too. I did tech support and the occasional PA type thing for the boss. In the beginning, the boss made it all sound like a meritocracy. You get pay raises, bonuses, etc., as you demonstrate your value. And to give him some credit, that was basically true for the first year or two that I worked there. I was getting raises and/or bonuses on a pretty regular basis. I got comfortable working there though, which was the big mistake. If I'd left after 2 years, I would have avoided a lot of unpleasantness. But by the 2-year mark, a certain hick ex-president had driven the economy into the ground and good jobs were really hard to come by. So I was basically stuck in this work-from-home job for a while. The boss realized my lack of mobility and that's when things became unpleasant. I pride myself on kicking butt at any job I do. If you give me a job, I'll work my butt off until I'm the best employee in the whole company. I don't know how else to work a job except to try like heck to be the best I can be. I should say here that the boss is basically nuts. I have no idea what his issue might be. But Freud would have a field day with the boss. For starters, he always had to mention that he was Ivy League. I won't say which university, but he always mentioned that he graduated from that university when he was on the phone with people. I know this to be true because he frequently conferenced me into non-work calls he had with friends. I have no idea why he would do that. It had nothing to do with work or with me. I guess he wanted me to, I don't know, be impressed. Another thing was high-top shoes. He always wore high-top shoes, he told me. Because what if he was working in his apartment, tripped on something and fell over? High tops might save him from a broken ankle. Another time, I was on the phone with him and guiding him to a restaurant where he was having lunch with his parents. Because he refused to buy a smartphone and use GPS, so, of course I would have to guide him there on Google Maps. Swear to God, this actually happened. When he arrived at the restaurant, he got out of the car with the phone still to his ear, caught sight of his parents and said, "Mommy. Mommy." A pushing 50-year-old man and he still calls his mother, Mommy. I mean, what in the high holy F? Another time, the boss made me buy him a new pickup truck. I guess he didn't know you can somewhat negotiate the price on a car. Old money Ivy League, remember. I guess when you grow up ridiculously rich, you never worry about little things like getting a good deal on a new vehicle. But mentioning that little fact to the boss is one of the biggest regrets of my entire life. Because he made me buy him a truck. Obviously, the boss paid using his own money, paying cash, buying the thing outright without financing, but I still had to basically broker the deal. Once I'd closed the deal on a new truck for the boss, then I had to turn around and buy a truck for his idiot boomer dad too. Then of course, the boss said his mother decided that she wanted a new truck too. Over the course of the next year and a half, I probably bought, i.e., negotiated the price for 6 different trucks. I've got a million of them, but I should probably get back to the story. Anyway, so the boss started messing with me after a while. Little things at first. Like, he promised me a pretty big raise. Then when my evaluation came up, he offered me a raise at half the amount he originally suggested. I mentioned that and he denied everything. He said he would never offer me a raise that big. But I stood my ground. He promised a bigger raise and now he was going back on his word. Rather than respond with facts or something, he tried to make me feel crazy. Next, he started assigning me work and then saying he wanted something different from what I turned in. I told him I had given him exactly what he asked for, but he denied it. He tried to make me feel crazy. Sometimes the company would have to send formal letters to vendors or customers. Usually, it was my job to draft them so that the boss could put the final polish on the formal letter before sending it. I was assigned one such for a customer. I wrote the letter, included the points the boss wanted to emphasize, and then emailed it to him. 5 minutes later, he called me in a foaming rage. He said I got the name of the customer wrong, we can't send this, we'll look stupid to our customer, blah blah blah. He tried to make me feel crazy. Luckily, he assigned the formal letter to me through a voicemail, which I had saved. I played him the voicemail and showed him where he was wrong. I had done exactly what he told me to do. Big mistake. He hung up on me in a big huff. Things went from bad to worse. He tried to make me feel crazy. About everything. At one point, we would only communicate through email so that he couldn't try turning things around on me later on. He also assigned me some really pointless stuff to do. He wanted me to monitor a vendor's service to us. That required setting up an automated system through Windows command prompt that would constantly check the status of the vendor's service. I kept logs of every single status check that I performed. I would start the automated process at the beginning of my shift and then leave the process running until I clocked out at the end of my shift. I know I'm being vague and technical here, but this is important. It will come up later. Remember this part. My pay became by far the biggest point of contention. I'm paying you too much, you're too useless and incompetent to justify such a big salary, I should cut your pay, blah blah blah. Except I didn't get paid a salary. I got paid an hourly wage. But that didn't seem to matter. If I called out sick for a day, I didn't get paid. So I was an hourly employee, right? But if a given task, assignment made me work late, tough crap, the time clock stopped at 5 o'clock p.m. but I had to keep working. I didn't get paid one bit more. So I was a salary employee then. In fact, my pay was whatever favored the boss at any given time. You're contracted for 8 hours, so 8 hours is all you get. Yeah, a few times he tried to claim I worked on contract. It's reasonable to ask why I tolerated such mistreatment. Understand, the economy was in the toilet and job prospects for everybody were pretty bad back in those days. But here I had a job that let me work from home and was stable in the sense that the company wasn't going out of business anytime soon. Because the kind of work the company does is basically recession-proof. If I bucked up to the boss too much, he might have fired me and then I would have been in a real mess. Still, one day I snapped. After years of being called stupid or insane, I guess I'd finally had enough and I told him off. He was cruel, spiteful, vindictive and abusive. He wasn't being fair to me, either as an employee or as a person, by constantly running me down and picking on me even though I did good work and was by far the most dependable employee he had. The boss reacted as if I'd just insulted his mommy. He said he wouldn't tolerate such blatant insubordination. But, rather than fire me, he would cut my pay down to minimum wage. Thing about the boss is, he rarely fired anybody. He would usually just cut somebody's pay to a point where they couldn't stick around anymore and then they'd quit. He was trying to do that to me now. But the laws in this state say that you can't arbitrarily cut an employee's pay. A, you need cause, and B, the employee must agree to having his pay reduced. And I told the boss that he didn't have cause and that I will not agree to a pay reduction of any kind. Needless to say, he hung up on me. Next day, he called back and said that my pay will be adjusted to minimum wage in 2 weeks, and if I don't like that, I could find another job somewhere else. Got him. 2 weeks come and go and the boss made it clear that he expected me gone. No problem, if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. Naturally, I filed for unemployment. The boss fought that and tried to claim that I quit. But the state employees said that it doesn't work that way. The boss can't cut my pay without my consent. So as far as they were concerned, I was laid off. Because the boss gave me an ultimatum: accept a pay cut or get lost. The state said that means I was laid off, which means that I was eligible for unemployment. The boss fought that too. He changed his story and tried to claim that I was fired with cause for incompetence and gross negligence. The state employees replied by saying if that was true, why did my pay matter at all? If I was so bad, why didn't the boss just fire me outright and skip arguing about my pay altogether? I guess the boss didn't have an answer for that. In the end, I got paid unemployment. For the first time in his life, things weren't going the way the boss wanted them to go. He was used to bullying other people around. Losing wasn't in his script. I'd gotten a taste of victory. And I wanted more. Now it was really time to put the screws to the boss. I filed a complaint with a different employment department. I reported that the boss forced me to work extra hours almost every single day and refused to pay me for the extra time. The employment department asked if I had proof. And yes, I did have proof. It was easy to produce several emails alluding to the extra hours I'd worked. I made a point of mentioning these extra unpaid hours in several emails to the boss over the years, suspecting it might come to this in the end. Other employees and the boss inadvertently corroborated my unpaid hours in other emails. Plus, remember that I checked the status of a vendor's service. Well, I logged every single one of those things. The only mathematically possible way to log that many automated status checks is by working 10-hour days here, 12-hour days there, etc., because 8 hours would result in fewer tests performed per day while more than 8 hours resulted in a higher number of tests performed per day. Get it? This had been going on for years and I had proof. I even had proof that the boss personally demanded all this. In the end, the state employment department guy said that his department basically drove a bus up his butt. I don't know all the details, but I heard that they socked him with a bunch of fines or something. Like I say, I never knew all the details, but they really made the boss live in a world of crap for something like a year. For fun and games, I reached out to some ex-employees who had gotten run out by the boss. I gave them the number of my contact guy in the state employment office and said this guy might be very interested in hearing their stories. 2 former employees told me they'd love to talk to that guy.